there's no physical way that you're going to be able to cover me as a corner and blitz without leaning. Go lower. You're cheating.
Not to.
Yes, All right, so what are you excited about for this game?
I mean, we were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier. Like, I feel like we don't always get the best two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Those teams that make it through the playoffs, if they're a 2 or 3 seed, they obviously deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But an upset would have had to have happened. Or an injury happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it feels like this is the best two teams in the league, two real heavyweights, like you were saying earlier. So I'm just looking forward to like a very competitive Super Bowl, which I feel like we don't always get.
That's correct. I think this Super Bowl, and just the way I think the NFL got it right with the playoffs. We've never really seen, especially how the last, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks, how the NFL was heading into the playoffs with resting guys, and not resting guys because they had the choice. They were forcefully resting guys. Tennessee Titans had so many injuries. Brock Purdy with the San Francisco 49ers. Then you have Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. There's so many guys that injuries kind of hampered their team. And yet now we have the two teams that rightfully so, their fan base more than everybody else would say these are the two teams that deserve to be here, right? I think the Philadelphia Eagles were more of a team that ran away with the leading votes of this team seems unstoppable. And now they're in here in the Super Bowl. Are you surprised at how adjustable the Philadelphia Eagles have been throughout this whole year?
I feel like I started my ears perked up with Philly when they picked up Bradbury. When the Giants released him, they picked up Bradbury.
That far early?
Well, it was like, I already liked their front seven. You know what I mean? They through the draft, they add Jordan Davis.
Charlotte.
And Nakobe Dean, who's really just been like a special teams gunner. But coming out of Georgia, I was like, these are two guys I love. So it's like you add them to an already established front seven. I didn't see Hassan Reddick becoming like a top 3 edge rusher this year, you know what I mean? So I already liked their front seven, and then he did that. But I've loved Slay since he was in Detroit, and it was like, okay, now you've got 2 top corners to go along with that front seven. Yeah, I like this defense a lot, and I've been a Jalen Hurts guy coming into the league, so it was just like and they went out and got A.J. Brown a year after they take Devonta Smith, so it's like, I kind of like everything they've got going here. But of course, you got to play the games. Things need to happen.
Yeah.
NFC East every year, something weird happens there.
Yeah.
It never is predictable.
Is it something weird happens, or is it just the Cowboys don't perform well? Because
that's the only consistent part. Is the Cowboys don't live up to expectations, but it's just like they haven't had a repeat division winner in like over a decade, something crazy like that. So it's always someone new stepping to the table. But it was like, all right, the Eagles have invested in their offensive line for years now. Like, that's like the returning cast of all this. And then they've added to the secondary. They make the big trade for A.J. Brown. They believe in their quarterback. They're not with Daniel Jones removing his 5th-year option, saying, we don't really believe you that much. They're like, no, we're actually going to give this guy another weapon, make it easier for him rather than have him prove it like so many other teams do before we invest in that.
But I think proving it has, I believe proving in your 5th year, I like that option because there are some, the old school part about football used to be very rarely first and second rounders re-sign with the team that drafted them. Because there were first round draft picks back in the day, they got so much money up front that it didn't matter if they played well. Sam Bradford, $75 million guaranteed, right? And he never really, and it's not that he couldn't play. He seemed like a pretty darn good football player. He obviously sustained some injuries. But back in the day when I was coming out, back then when I used to walk through school in 10 10 miles of snow.
Yeah.
You hear about first or second rounds not starting. But when I was coming out, we would always do, and I had the privilege of playing in the Shrine Game. And when we play in the Shrine Game and playing East College, they always used to have players, coaches, old heads that would always come back and talk about what the NFL meant to them and what you are getting and what you will receive in passing the torch. And one of the things that was really interesting was I would hear 3rd through 5th round are the players that actually make up the league. And back in the day, it used to be the 3rd through 12th round.
Yeah.
Right? It's 3rd through 7th round where those are the players that are the nucleus of your team, because the first and second rounders wouldn't normally be on the team. They would sign somewhere else because people would say how much they got paid never equaled out. They never got their return on their investment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that these fifth year options are basically saying, if we make a mistake, we're going to make you be uncomfortable and see how you perform. And some guys have not performed well.
Definitely. Some
guys who have performed well, and then there's other guys where, like Josh Jacobs, where the fact that you're going to make him earn it,
right?
Where he's been earning it since day one, right? Mm-hmm. I think he was the 28th pick anyway.
Yeah, he was in the 20s.
And he's earned it, and now you have an opportunity where he's going to walk.
He wants to badly.
I think he should.
Yeah.
But I just look at the Philadelphia Eagles and what they've done and how they've done it with Roseman, Howie Roseman, what he's done. You gotta give him his due.
1,000%.
No one saw. I mean, this is the same general manager that took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
In the COVID year where they were scouts saying if we were all together, we would have never allowed him to take that pick. And I do think having a good scouting department does help you. And normally that's a Bill Belichick error, where he burns both ends of the candle with scouts. I've heard that normally teams scout 150 players. I think he makes his guys scout 250 players because he wants to comb and go through every available guy. If they have one or two guys that can just make a play or two every year, that's the difference between a number one seed and being a wild card pick.
Mm-hmm. And he'll scout those 250 and then go into the draft. Like, our draft board is 50 players. And if they're not there, we're trading these picks for next year. He does that time and time again. And that's why he'll take like a safety out of Lenore Ryan at the end of the first or trade into the early second when everyone's like, we've got like a 3rd round grade on him. Because he's like, well, our board, he's at the top of it. So he just completely throws out like the rest of the league's opinions, which has worked and has burned him plenty of times.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't think anyone, but speaking of Howie Roseman, being able to miss on a first rounder like Jalen Reagor and then still not have that throw off everything. You know what I mean? So many teams miss on a first round pick and it sets them back 3 years. And they really haven't missed a beat.
Why do you think it sets them back?
I think they just don't have a talented player that they could have had in that position, so they're behind the curve in a talent way. But then also, I think they start second guessing themselves. Like, oh, if we like that guy, now they see another guy similarly who might actually be what they thought, but now they're like, we can't take it. Like, I wouldn't take a big receiver if I were the Patriots because of what happened with N'Keal Harry. Now, and that's the wrong way to think it, because of course someone else is going to be either a little faster or just a little bit more naturally talented. But
as I go back and look at N'Keal Harry's tape, there was nothing that indicated he should have been taken in the first round.
No. No. I think when he was taken, was he like 29th pick or something like that? Whatever it was. When he was taken, it was just like, we had, like, on the draft shows, they're like, we had him as like wide receiver 5, maybe. Like,
I thought Brandon Ayuk was a better.
That was the first thing everyone said. They were like, Arizona State has a first round receiver. He's just coming out next year.
Yeah.
And it was not great to hear, especially when Debo was right there, especially when A.J. Brown was right there, especially when DK Metcalf was right there. So, yeah, that was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough. But Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson is a massive miss, no matter how people want to look at it. And they're still right here with a really good wide receiver core, one you were talking about last episode.
I think that wide receiver core is I think we are talking so much about the Kelsey brothers, which they deserve all the credit. To have two brothers playing in the same Super Bowl is super cool. And they're crazy unique, have a fantastic personality. I really love that. But one of the things that we're not talking, that no one's really talking about, is how good these two receivers are. Like, we talk about what Patrick Mahomes brings to the table with the Kansas City Chiefs. We talk about what Juju Smith-Schuster has not done. Mikael Hartman, who's injured. You talk about Kadarius Toney with his injury. Who's going to step up? Who's going to be the next guy to impact that? Tyreek Hill is not there. But then we are just glancing over, not even discussing, even completely dismissing the ability that A.J. Brown presents. A.J. Brown was so good. He was the general manager for Tennessee, the Tennessee Titans fired because the Falcons, the Eagles fans were so mean at the game and yelling into the owner's suite that it was hard to ignore. And then the way he played, it was hard to ignore that was a complete blunder by letting him walk and trade him away.
They tried to do what the Vikings did when they traded Stephon Diggs and immediately replaced him with Justin Jefferson, and that is not an easy thing to replicate.
But they traded Stephon Diggs because they also had a Pro Bowler
in Adam Thielen. Right.
And so they used the pick because they needed to replace the body and potential with Justin Jefferson. But they didn't have a Pro Bowler on the roster when they traded A.J. Brown.
No, they were hoping Robert Woods would be a little healthier, a little more like what he was when he got to the Rams as opposed to where he's at right now.
But you have to have good play calling.
Oh, yeah, no, the Tennessee Titans have a ton of problems. Yeah. They have a ton of problems. Yeah. You brought up Philly fans. How many times did you play in Philly on the road in your career?
Enough to know about them. I've been to a few games as well. Torrey Smith, good friend of mine, on that Super Bowl run, I went to a game up there.
Well, what's the difference now as a player who used to go there? Like, do they treat you differently as someone who's not currently playing?
Oh no, they treat you the same way. They're equal opportunists. Like, they're going to disrespect you immediately.
Does it bother you, or do you enjoy that? Like, do they cross the line too much?
I think they've all crossed. Every individual has crossed the line too much, especially when you have. There are some fans that are great, but then when you have like Philly, New England, Chicago's okay. I'm actually really well liked in Chicago, but there's some organizations, the older they are, they're just deep rooted in, we do not root for anyone else than our guys. Mm-hmm. And I respect it. But I am interested to see how Philly fans are going to travel, because it is a little bit further. Mm-hmm. The West Coast is a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit more spread out. So I am going to be interested to see how the Philly fans travel and how they do. But Kansas City is used to this. Like, Kansas City has become one of those teams that this is the new expectation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've taken the Patriots spot. Kills me to say it, but when I look at them, they've taken the Patriots spot.
I wasn't even thinking about the Patriots.
I'm always thinking about the Patriots.
Why?
They're my team. You just said it. You literally just said teams like New England, they only care about their guys.
I know.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah. But there's also no one else we can point to historically in football where it was just they expect to be here every year, like the Chiefs have become.
I mean, before the Patriots, it was the Cowboys. It was
way before the Patriots. It was the Cowboys.
It was Pittsburgh.
But they all had
49ers.
They had runs. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't 2-decade runs. It was like what the Chiefs have done: 5 years, maybe pushing it to 8. Like, that's where it's like We're talking gold standards, and then we're talking like the Cowboys. Come on now.
Well, I think the last team was due would probably be the Green Bay Packers then.
We're talking like AFL? Like
That's
Lombardi,
how,
yeah.
That's how deep I got to go to trump you, though. I can't go anymore. All right, so let's talk a little bit. Got a little flack a little bit.
You?
Yeah, a little bit. Some people said I was shading Quentin Johnston a little bit because I came out with Zay Flowers. Mm-hmm. I wasn't shading Quentin Johnston. It was just more his family or some friends or said something. And already was going to do Zay Flowers, but it's just one of those where I think young athletes need to understand, like, one, there's so much information out there, but not all information is good information. But then there's other information out there where there's a self-evaluation, there's a critical moment. The combine is not a place where they say great things about you. It's a place where you basically go there to figure out where they can fill in the gray areas. Because right now, when you come out as a player, there are like black and white areas, like the black areas of, we know he went to college, we know how tall he is, it's little gray. But then they get to fill in all the areas that they don't know. And the combine is not a place like, that's why you normally don't see, if you're in the top 5, they generally don't perform at the combine.
Yeah,
because it takes away, they take the point system away from you. Like the Brock Purdy's, the Steve Smiths, the Cooper Kupps, the John Ross, they perform at there because what if they can shock somebody, they say, I know he can run fast, but how fast? And then all of a sudden, you have a team like the Cincinnati Bengals who takes a John Ross, and then a new regime comes in and they don't want to utilize that speed. They actually give him a healthy scratch because they don't want him to get hurt, because they have no place for him at that moment. And now where's John Ross, right? Trying to get back in the league or looking for an opportunity. Another talk about first round draft pick, holding out. Melvin Gordon. Mm-hmm. I had no idea Melvin Gordon was on the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad.
Me neither.
And just hearing his humility and just saying how humble it was. This is a guy who, he was looking like a really dynamic football player, held out, didn't work out, didn't get paid, goes to Denver, doesn't go well, coaching regime changes, and he's cut in November. And now he's been on the practice squad since. That's crazy.
Might get a ring.
Yes.
Would you feel the same? Would you feel like you didn't earn that ring?
You didn't earn it. Let's be honest, you didn't.
No, I agree, but it's like,
but I don't have one, so as people are gonna say, I don't have one, so I know what it's like. Right. But I would tell you, for a practice squad player to get a ring, being on the practice squad, that's great. That's fantastic. But if you're telling me a practice squad player,
well, it's going to be different levels, too. If you've been there all season, you know what I mean? You've been in practice all year doing
but
stuff.
You never got in the game.
For sure. Definitely. But it feels like it's different if you've been there since training camp versus you show up in December.
You never have been on the active roster at any point.
I don't disagree.
I think it's...
You were earlier, though, talking about when you were first starting off and you were getting, not practice squad, but you were getting second, third team reps going up against the starters.
Oh, yeah.
And you were toasting them. It's just like, do you feel like you were making that guy better at all?
No, I wasn't making that guy better.
You're just embarrassing him for the hell of it?
No, I was working on my craft.
Right.
So it wasn't about embarrassing him. It was like I was a third round pick, punt returner, and I was going against guys who was playing in the game. So I felt like if I can beat this guy that's in practice, that's playing in the game, that means I can play. So I was using it as a measuring stick more than anything.
Okay.
So it wasn't about, it actually wasn't about that individual. It was about like kind of measuring myself up to say, hey, I think I can play in this league.
Right, right.
Now, if the coach staff believes in me or not, that's up to them.
Yeah.
But I was building up my confidence to know when I get in a game, because if this guy's a starter in practice and I can beat him on a slant, then maybe I have an opportunity to beat this other guy for another team that's a starter for a slant in the game. And so you talk about that, it's like, look at like Zach Pascal, right? Talk about this Eagles group. Zach Pascal, he was up in with the Colts, drafted by Frank Wright, right? Let me go back. One of the interesting things, another point is not being talked about. Nick Sirianni, we're not talking about, we talk about Kyle Shanahan. Nick Sirianni is under the Andy Reid tree. He was with Frank, with the Colts, somewhere with Kansas City. And now he's in a Super Bowl going against Andy Reid. Their offenses are not the same, but they're very similar. And it's going to be interesting to see how each of them, they know fundamentally the foundation of the offense, where it goes, how it goes, who's going to really have the big explosive play and can make the other defensive coordinator make a mistake.
So if it is two guys who run essentially the same offense,
similar.
It's not very similar.
I like to say similar,
very
not the same.
Similar
because
offenses.
Andy Reid is the innovator.
Right.
I think Nick Sirianni is showing that he has the capability too, because you have two things on there. You have a pace and cut guy who just can do the plays, but then you have a guy who can create the plays on top of the plays. And I think that's the separation of why Nick Sirianni is good and also Andy Reid is good, because if you look at Andy Reid, under Andy Reid, you talk about Andy Reid when he was with the Eagles and you talk about Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs. Doug Peterson. Then they go to Kansas City. Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy. Frank Wright.
Is Eberflus one of those guys too? The Bears current coach? I think he was in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Frank Wright. All of those guys are there. Then Peterson goes to the Eagles and takes some of those guys. And then then Matt Nagy goes to Chicago. Other than Peterson, all those guys have come literally right back to Andy Reid. And then going back out. But Nick Sirianni is one of those guys, he also creates. And I think Frank Wright was missing that guy. And when he left, I think it took some adjustments to figure out what the next guy is. And it's amazing to see watching these two guys go back and forth, because Nick Sirianni has the innovative mind offensively to make the same adjustments, because you got to remember a year and a half ago with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, Philadelphia Eagles, there were some question marks. You're like, what are they doing? They wouldn't run the football. They were just doing all this creative passing. And now all of a sudden they got a great running game. The RPO game is making defenses, if you want to play zone, Jalen Hurts is going to pick you apart. If you want to play man, A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams and Dallas Goedert, they're going to tear you a new one. The intermediate game and the RPO game is really going hand in hand. The RPO game does such a good thing is because they do the RPOs. You come up, you take a step forward. That means you're a step and a half or 2 steps out of the passing lane. When you step back, you're now losing the integrity of the structure of the defense and allowing the ball to be thrown in those windows. And then yards after catch is remarkable.
What percentage of RPOs are actually ours? Because watching them where I'm sitting.
That was a great question. Just the way you phrased it, I was even like,
They're always. It's just to me, it's just like an extended play action.
So here's what part of the RPO is a R. In the beginning of the game, in the first quarter, it's a run. But really, where it gets team defenses in compromising situations is in the third and fourth quarter, because it's data. The first 15, you talk about the first 15. The first 15 is an opportunity where they see, in the first 15, they see all these plays, the defense, and they have to make adjustments. So when you see a motion, the Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers, there are a lot of teams out there. Motion is for two things. Indicator, man or zone. But then also an indicator of how will they react. So when you're doing the RPO, and they're looking, what does the end do? Right? You remember how Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons, how the RPO game kind of really froze them? Because it showed you what the game plan was. We know there's a game plan. We just don't know how the game plan is going to be acted out. And so the RPO game is to see how it is. Yes, they're going to make adjustments, but if you can kind of get a figure of how it'll look and what it'll do, why the first 15 in the RPO game is such a big deal is because it allows you to build on top of in the third and fourth quarter when you need that big play.
So it's less about even the success of that individual play as much as it is what's the defense showing. Yes,
it's data and it's information.
Right.
There are plays it's not going to work. Some of the best
Cowboys do not know that. They have.
There's a lot of Cowboys fans that would agree.
Yeah.
But you have to run that play to know if it's not going to work.
Right.
And that's why the game plan is so big. It looks like a menu. Is because they're marking successful, not successful. They may have been running this, they may have been running that, and that's why. And so that's why I love this game, because I truly believe it's one of those games that we have all been thirsty and hungry for. Pay-per-view, old school boxing, when there was big boxing promoters would always want to have haymakers. And this is a haymaker kind of game. This can be a low-scoring game or a high-scoring game, but the thing is there's going to be some exciting moments and there's going to be some haymakers where Travis Kelce is the right hand. Kadarius Toney, the way he's utilizing his offense, he can be the Swiss Army knife. He can be death by 1,000 paper cuts. And then now with Pacheco, how he's running so tough and downhill. He's the battering ram. He is that he's going to be the Mike Tyson. I'm going to try to knock you out in the first 20 seconds of the bout. And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles, the way their defense is playing, they are the George Foreman. Like they can take a pounding and just keep getting hit. And you know about that 6th or 7th round when all things their eyes are shut and the Foreman grills are going. At the end of the day, you know that he's going to catch a second win. And that's what the Philadelphia Eagles present. That's what the Kansas City Chiefs, that is going to be haymakers. It's going to be heavyweight bout. And I think you got great coaches, offense and defense, that give you that opportunity to be prepared, but you just don't know when it's going to hit. Is it going to be in the middle of the third quarter? Is it going to be after adjustments? I can see it being 7-7. Or I can see it being 3-3, and then all of a sudden in the second half, they have enough data. All right, let's turn it loose.
Break it open. So is this game, since the offensive coordinators are so similar, is this game come down to the defensive coordinators? And should Andy Reid and Sirianni be like more focused on that side of the ball, being like, hey, I've got the data. He's running the same thing. This is spy versus spy. So let me tell you what I would do against my team.
I think you can, but the problem is the Kansas City Chiefs don't have the offensive weapons of wide receivers. And that's the part that's scary. Juju Smith-Schuster has to step up since his concussion, since his absence, the absence of AB with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a dominant number one, a true tier one wide receiver. Juju has not been the caliber of wide receiver that we have expected after his rookie and second year of having AB. And that's the biggest issue is I'm watching these injuries. What is going to happen to Patrick Mahomes? Because Patrick Mahomes, when blitzed, is remarkable. But he actually has not played a team like the Philadelphia Eagles where they don't even blitz a lot.
Right.
They get enough pressure with their four less front. That's remarkable. A ton of pressure, 38%. Less than 40%, but in the NFL, that's ridiculous. 40%
you get
pressure.
4 downs, it's once every 3 downs.
Yes.
So you know what I mean? Like it's
Without a blitz.
right.
And then you have the secondary that's playing lights out, led by Big Play Slay. All of a sudden, it's like you have two different devices, D lineman or the front seven and the back half, the secondary, and they're synced up. And all of a sudden, they're rhythmically just on the same page. And it can be disastrous for the Kansas City Chiefs. But obviously, at the end of the day, they have Patrick Mahomes, who's able to extend plays.
For the Chiefs to win this game, which player that we haven't been talking about needs to step up?
I think Juju Smith-Schuster has to show up. MVS is going to be the deep threat. He's the guy that's putting a lot of pressure on the defense. You have to have, there's levels to this, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have a guy that can stretch the field, put a lot of pressure, but you have to have a guy that's intermediate. MVS is that guy that can stretch the field, and the intermediate guy is Travis Kelce. Now, they're going to have a game plan for Travis Kelce.
I'd hope so. It seems like no team does, which blows my mind. Like and I get it. Like it's easier to say than to go out and cover the man, but I'm shocked. Like even against the Bengals, like he had that touchdown where he was just one-on-one.
Yeah.
I believe it was third down.
Yeah, well,
how is he not doubled? How is that not like automatic? Or is that just such easier for me to say than to actually pull off?
It's easier for you to say because Andy Reid does a good job of hiding them. Andy Reid does a lot of different play designs that, yes, you can try to double them, but you have so much other what we call ships passing in the night, right? If you have ships passing the night, you can't just go, okay, we're going to see Travis Kelce and all these other guys. And that's why MVS has been playing so well, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, he had a huge game. He had a monster.
And that's why, because it's 1,000 cuts by paper. Because what you think can happen cannot, and what you believe will never will.
You would not be able to hide Travis Kelce from me. He's the biggest guy on the field. I could absolutely see him. He's getting doubled all game.
Okay. And that's why MVS had 2 touchdowns.
For sure. And if that's who beats me, I'd live with that. You know what I mean? That's the Belichick way of doing it.
Cincinnati would go back, and if they had an opportunity, they would change that, and they would disagree with you.
I think they would just change Joe Burrow, throw him multiple interceptions.
But how was he able to throw multiple interceptions? Because of game planning.
Definitely. But that was also part of Cincinnati's game plan because he takes those risks in the double coverage and trusts his receivers. Yeah. So it's like, take one less risk, you kick that field goal instead of the Chiefs, and then it doesn't matter what MVS does. Because like we've said, it comes down to 5-6 plays.
Yeah.
Now, we've said that for the regular season. Does the Super Bowl come down to less or more plays?
I think the Super Bowls come down to more plays because regular season, you live for another day. Mm. Playoffs, you're kind of cautious. Super Bowl,
empty the clip.
You got to empty the clip. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. I mean, that's why the Philadelphia Eagles were able to that play against,
Philly special.
Philly special because they know there's nothing left.
Right. And I think like the Saints, Sean Payton calling the onside kick to start the second half.
Yes.
Stuff like that, which I don't think we'll ever see that again. I feel like every team's ready for it now. And if you're not, you're poorly coached, and I don't even know how you got this far. If you're not ready for those first or second half kickoff, being an onside kick.
Because there's also analytics, and there's things that you can set up and do way ahead of time that will tell you they're not running this, they're running this. They are going to run this, they're not going to run that. So the biggest thing is your own scouting report. Understanding your own scouting report. If you don't have your own scouting report on yourself, then you're in trouble.
Definitely.
And so they have their own scouting report. Hey, this is what we do. So they do things to set up when they're going to actually run it. So yes, as a fan, you're seeing it, but the players aren't because they are. It's like always.
It's like tunnel vision. You're so focused.
You're so focused, but also too, you live there. So you, as the player and the coach, you've seen this team. You watch so much film on all week, and now in this one, 2 weeks ahead of time. So it's not a fresh pair of eyes. It's like when you live at your house, you don't see this. Like if there's a stain somewhere, you're used to seeing that stain.
Right.
Then somebody else comes, you go, oh yeah. Oh, that's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's why.
You always say my house is just like disgusting. Always. That's always your example. My bed, my floor.
I mean, I have 4 kids, so I got 4 kids and a dog. So I'm more speaking out of experience.
You're projecting. Yeah.
I'll definitely projecting. Yeah.
Now we got it.
In my bedroom, I think I was in the headboard of my bedroom. I had surgery, and so something was happening, and so I had like something on my head or something. It was grease, or I don't know what it is. Obviously, it wasn't hair grease. Right?
An attempted transplant.
Yeah. And so there's a stain, and my wife came in the other day. She's like, "It won't come out." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, the stain. I was like, oh, that's been there for years. I've gotten 2 new mattresses, but not a new headboard.
Still works.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about these 2 weeks as someone who's gone through these 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What's different mentally than preparing for a normal game?
All the media.
A distraction.
It can be, because there are some media who are distracting. There are some media who's trying to get gotcha questions.
Yeah.
So yes, the media can be a distraction. There are different things that you normally don't see. When you're the last couple of teams in the playoffs, and obviously in the Super Bowl, there's 2 different. There's the local media, and then the national media that comes and wants to see you and set up things at home, right before you go off to the Super Bowl. And then when you get to Super Bowl, it becomes an international event, right? And then you get all types of people. You get outfits that are just looking for the wow moment, for the clickbait. So that's the distracting part that they say, don't take the cheese, don't fall into it, because the NFL and the Super Bowl has become such a grand event that other people are trying to utilize that opportunity to benefit them as well.
I mean, what?
This is Bandit. He founded Underdog Fantasy so that humans who really love sports could play with their friends and win some big prizes. Tell your human to go to underdogfantasy.com today.
What did you think of Buddy who apologized to Jalen Hurts? Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Someone came up to him and was like, a lot of people doubted you being able to play quarterback. I was one of them. I'm sorry. And Jalen,
who was it?
I don't know, some guy who got into like the press thing at the other night. And
he was a regular dude?
I don't know if he was a regular dude or if he was a writer or what, but he went up to him, he asked that, and Jalen Hurts just said, cool. Like, I don't, like, get on.
Like, that's where you ask, what's your intention? Like, what is it about? Like, he could have saw him at another time. It's
very accessible Jalen Hurts.
You have opportunities where you could reach out to if you're part of the media and you doubt
for sure. If you're in the media,
like I'm part of the media and I've doubted players and I've seen players. I said, man, I didn't think you're gonna be the kind of player you are. I was wrong.
Yeah,
I've
you
said
didn't
that.
do it publicly. You didn't do it.
No, I don't need
trying
to.
to go viral stuff like that.
No, because my intentions it was more about the individual and what I said and owning what I said. Now, if I say something publicly like, hey, I don't think I don't think you can play. I've come back. I've been on Thursday night and picked the opposite team. And then they want to say, hey, man, I didn't pick you. My fault. I'll eat humble pie.
How much do players actually care about what
they care about it a lot? They have to. They have to because they have to care about it because those are the same things that are used against you. Those are the same things on your social media page. Those same things being retweeted, being reposted. You may not want to acknowledge it, but in this day and age, it is extremely hard not to not see all of the stuff that people are saying about you.
How do you let it not like tear apart a locker room or
because
influence how you go about moving?
They're in the Super Bowl, so it didn't tear up the locker room.
Sure, for them, but not with home. Like we said, there's 30 teams at home right now.
Yeah,
so.
but those 30 teams are also, to some degree, they're on some stage, right? They're part of the 32. They're part of the shield that has all this information and all this stuff that, at the end of the day, after the Super Bowl, man, it's dead.
Yeah.
Other sports are hoping and wishing they can get the amount of coverage that the NFL gets, the games get.
And they don't, 'cause it goes right into the draft, and that dominates, and then free agency's right before the draft.
Yes.
Draft happens, and then they still dominate.
That's why the combine is now becoming an evening event.
Mm-hmm.
I like to call it the Underwear Olympics, right? That's why the draft is now in different cities, right? Because cities now see the benefit and it brings in revenue. So it's a streaming revenue, not just for the league, but also for those cities. And people are taking NFL and taking football because now it's such intriguing. And like Underdog, whoever it is, we've been able to give more information. Whether we like it or not, the accessibility and the information, not being able to turn off anything, leads to who can give a unique perspective at a unique time, at a random place, in a random outfit, in a random shirt, in a random location, at any time or place.
Mm-hmm. And you were like, I'm going to ask you about the Eagles in a second, but for me, if Kansas City's going to win this game, I think it's Jerick McKinnon, assuming he's healthy. And I don't know anyone in Kansas City. They were all listed as out like last Wednesday for some reason. If Jerick McKinnon plays, you were talking about that intermediate, they've kind of used him as a receiver more or less. And I think back to Shane Vereen dominating a Super Bowl out of the backfield. And I do think if they're going to have someone more consistent, the way he dominated just the second half of the season for them, I feel like he became like Pat's like security blanket when he needed someone. And if that ankle's not 100%, which it sounds like it's closer than it was 2 weeks ago, that guy's going to be the closest to him. So I could see him having a day.
2 weeks in the NFL is equivalent to 2 months of treatment in the regular world, right? A lot of people don't even realize when you pull your hamstring, if you Google hamstrings,
which we all do.
Like if you Google hamstring pull, grade 1, grade 2, it will tell you 6 to 8 weeks before you're able to run. Because you're supposed to just treat it and let the leg rest. Generally, when you pull a hamstring, man, it's a week of rehab. You second week, you're back in there. Sometimes injuries, you've heard me say it, sometimes these hamstring injuries or injuries overall sometimes can deem as punishment. Because if you get injured in the NFL, a regular season, you come in at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, you get treatment before your football day starts. Then after that, you go to, if you're on special teams, you go to the special teams meeting because you're injured, you're not out. You're not on IR. So that means you have to be in meetings, being prepared, because when you're getting treatment, this treatment is telling you you're going to play. So you have to go to special teams meeting. Then there's a quick little break or whatever the team meeting is at 8 o'clock. Then after the team meeting, then they'll break down to offensive meetings. Then after offense, they'll talk, and then they break down to individual. Maybe it's just offense, and then wide receivers, tight ends, or offensive linemen, tight ends, and running backs, because they all have to be on the same page for blocking. Wide receivers go in their room. Then after that, you may have lunch, or you do a walkthrough, have lunch. Then you got treatment in between that. Then you go on the field, and you may not be able to practice, but you're getting mental reps. So you're holding a script. Then after, there's open locker room. In that open locker room, you're getting treatment. Then you get enough treatment to be able to grab lunch or whatever it is, snack. Then you go to the meeting because they watch practice. Then you take notes. Then after that meeting, guess what you get? Treatment again. Yeah. And you start that all over. You've gotten 3, sometimes 4 treatments in one day. That's what it's like to be injured. That's the punishment. Because you also have to get up. And then, and sometimes when you get home, you may have dry needling, you may have a massage, you may have a chiropractor, you may have hyperbaric chamber treatment. You may have something that is going to help you. And then you have something else in the house, and then you get up and do it all over again. And you can, and think about it, you do that 4 treatments every day for the next 14 days. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's what? 7 times 4 is 28, 28. That's 36. No.
56.
56 treatments. Yes. So you wondering why they feel good? That's the punishment. That's how it works. It's not punishment, but it just kind
It
of
feels that way.
yes,
Yeah.
because it's Groundhog Day on steroids.
Right.
And that's just a regular season. What do you think it is for the playoffs?
Right. For the Super Bowl, yeah.
For the Super Bowl.
I mean, I think the most extreme example is T.O., right? He breaks his leg and he's back in 5 weeks. What was it?
Yeah, I didn't think that was gonna happen. I was like, yeah, right.
Preferred if it didn't. It would have been a much easier game. Substantially easy.
But that's the stuff that goes on. That's the big business of ball.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not the NBA, so it's not guaranteed contracts, and it is someone else behind you trying to get that job.
It's not even about the contracts, man. It's about
But it's someone else vying for that spot behind you.
it's not even that.
Okay.
It is the gladiator. It is the you don't want to let your teammates down. It is the fact that you have been part of something to get somewhere, and all of a sudden you're not going to be a part of that. You don't want to miss out on that.
All right.
You know, it's not FOMO. It's we have been by each other so much. The training camp, why that training camp is so significant. Training camp is they break you down. They see where your threshold is. They see where your mental and physical capabilities are. Where's your threshold? And then they build you back up to the place that they want you to be. They build you back up on learning how to run a slant versus press coverage when it's 96-degree weather or if it's minus 14-degree weather, whether it's snow, whether it's artificial turf, whether it's natural grass, whether it's raining, whether you got sweat in your eye, whether you don't, whether the guy is physically stronger than you, you have to be mentally prepared. And that all starts in training camp. That's why that's so important.
Sounds very militaristic.
At times.
Yeah. For the Eagles to win this game, who has to step up that we haven't already talked about?
Dallas Goedert, I think, has had a great game. I think, honestly, A.J. Brown's going to step up. Devontae Smith is going to step up, the Slim Reaper. I always forget his name. Quez Watkins. But then also,
I'm pretty sure. Double check me if it's not Watkins. I can't. Okay.
I think number 14.
Yeah.
I think number
Gainwell?
Gainwell has to step up because they're utilizing him a little bit more than Boston
Scott. Yeah.
Boston Scott. They're using him more in the red zone. And I would see also, too, the way they're utilizing him, I would expect because he's going to become a free agent, that they'll let him walk because they're grooming the next guy to fill in.
Miles Sanders.
Yeah. I think Miles Sanders is going to walk. I just can see that they have so many thoroughbreds in the stable that they're trying to figure out and allow the game to go to know where the next step is going to be because they already know they have such a good team. And they also know that they have to be prepared for next year's run with the amount of players and the type of players they have currently right now.
You talk about next year, and I think it's interesting to think about someone's going to lose this game. They have to.
There's a 50-50 chance.
They have one of these two teams is going to lose this. What is like mentally, you just talked about starting a training camp.
Yeah.
Now you're all the way, you see the finish line. Like you and everyone else has been run over by the pace car. There's only 2 of you left at the finish line. Whichever team doesn't cross it, how hard is it to pick yourself back up to do it again next year?
I think it depends on how it goes. A great example is San Francisco 49ers. You see how things went for them and how the expectations were there. How they lose is going to impact them. And then also I think the way they lose also impacts both of those teams with coaches and with players moving forward and heading into the draft. What are we missing? What areas did we not have? And what player was there? I think letting the honey badger go and picking up Reid was the difference. They wanted to get more. They needed to get more speed on the back half, and so that's why they had to do that. Is they were starting to slow down. They were starting to They really just were beat by speed, and so they need to get faster.
You've picked only offensive guys to be the difference makers for both teams. I think Philly's going to win this game, and I do think Philly's going to win this game. But when that pressure gets to Pat, and he's going to throw it up, he's not just going to go down. That secondary needs to come away with the ball. They need to force turnovers. You can't give him more life. So I think it's going to be like an Avonte Maddox, someone like that. That third corner is going to have to make a play because he's not going to want to target Slay. He's not going to want to target Bradbury. So he's going to be looking, like I said, if I think he's looking at McKinnon, that seems like
I would imagine that they will put a corner on
Kelsey,
Gardner Johnson.
Okay.
Because he has the length.
Yeah, you don't want to do that with Maddox.
And I think they're comfortable with playing the corners they have against the wide receivers that the Kansas City Chiefs have.
Feels like an advantage for Philly.
I agree.
So yeah, I guess I'm picking their fourth corner as if
I don't think
Johnston
I don't think any of them need to have a game of their life. I think they just need to play who they are. I'm putting it on offense because we know what both of these teams are going to do defensively. I think what we don't know is what these teams are going to do offensively. And that's why, because of these defenses are pretty darn good. That's why.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You know way more about football than me, no questions asked. I have never, and this is true, I've never picked the Gatorade bath color incorrectly. I'm the best in the world at picking the Gatorade color.
Oh.
It's important, and I need you to understand that.
I don't care.
Oh, you have to care.
I don't.
You have to.
No, I don't.
There's millions of dollars are going to be passed.
It's not
hand to
none of
hand.
mine.
Well, it can be.
No, it cannot be. Like, I just think that's, here's the funniest thing. Bro, that is the least concerning thing I think players think about.
The color?
Yes.
I feel like that's wrong. Because that's also the flavor. So you have to know what these teams are drinking.
You obviously don't exercise a lot.
What gives that away?
The shirt. You look like you like to lounge on the beach, not run on the beach.
Well, running on the beach is what killed Robert Edwards' career. Why would anyone run on the beach?
Anyway, okay. I don't think it matters because if you're thirsty enough,
you'll drink anything.
You'll drink any color of Gatorade.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like teams have preferences. They have to. There's such a wide range of Gatorade. What's your favorite Gatorade flavor?
Again.
Oh, that's insane.
You know what color you don't like.
Okay, which ones do you not like? The lemon pepino one?
What?
Yeah, exactly. That one's rubbish.
I don't even know what kind that is.
It's not good.
I know. I don't like cucumber. They got some.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
That's the one. Yeah.
All right.
Awful.
I saw it. I don't even know what color it is. I just know it says
light green.
I know it says cucumber, and I'm like, no. Orange. Okay.
Okay. So you like the originals?
I don't know.
Glacier
Frost.
It's impossible that you're at this high level of an athlete and you do not have a Gatorade.
The white kind?
Yeah.
Arctic cherry?
The
Yes.
white ones.
Yeah. I don't understand why white and Arctic cherry, I would assume it was red, but anyway.
I think because red's fruit punch. You can't have too many reds.
My point, you don't. I'm telling you, I don't.
All right.
I really don't.
All right. It's the exclamation point on the seat. It's become one of the most iconic moments in sports is the Gatorade bath at the end of the Super Bowl.
Okay. All right.
When you see 6 of them for your team, you start to take notice.
Okay. I literally like.
The Gatorade sponsorship is not coming now. That's
Well, Well, you being a Boston fan, you used to being disappointed, so
Not
you'd be
necessarily. We used to it. No.
okay. Yeah.
For my adult life, no.
Oh,
No. It's been tremendous.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, actually, I have a question about the Gatorade.
Yes.
How far ahead of time do you know what color you're going
You don't.
Until it comes out of the spigot?
They don't even come out of spigot. Sometimes they just put it in the cup.
So just, you don't know what color it is until it's in your cup.
You don't until you cup. You're drinking it.
Okay.
People care. People care about Gatorade. Thank you, Rudman.
Okay. The people that don't matter care about the Gatorade.
Of course.
Like the Gatorade people who do it, I don't even know who does it. But it's
You're
somebody.
drinking Gatorade, you're not drinking water? I've heard this rumor that you guys would actually drink Gatorade.
Some of it is water. You know, some of it is water. Some of it,
And water's an option.
yes, but then some of it you don't want to have too much sugar. You don't want to have too much water because I have had too much water where you're running. Nothing's more gross than running around and you can feel the water swishing in your stomach. So you have to have that healthy balance. More than anything is, I've done this Gator Light packages of salt and chase it down with the Gatorade because so much salt. So it's more of just keeping the sodium.
I'm shocked how many, across all sports, they allow people to like have their own bottle of whatever. Like
It's not whatever, it's specific.
I know it's specific, but to like there's no labels on or anything. So
Because
to me,
it's the tape that's on there is you know, like I would have like depending on the game, how hot game, like there were certain because when I sweat I used more magnesium and more salt left my body, so I would have certain drinks because
To replenish it.
to replenish. But then I was also like I couldn't have certain ones because of my anxiety performance. I couldn't have orange. Anything citrus is coming right back up because of the anxiety. I used to have to take Tums
Interesting.
before a game
interesting.
because of the anxiety. I couldn't eat eggs. I was like on a brat diet before the game. Bland foods because if I didn't, I would puke it up.
Huh. That's interesting.
Like I had pasta with chicken, very little sauce. I just couldn't. It just I would just get so amped and have so much anxiety. So even now when I work out, I can't have any citrus before my workout, or it's like I'm in the middle of the workout, like I gotta go.
And that's wild considering your morning drink, from what you've said on this show, is like only citrus. Don't you do orange juice with pineapple? Not before you work out,
Not
though.
before. Oh
Okay.
no, not before a workout. No, that'd be.
That would be good.
It'd be bad.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Do we have any football questions?
I don't want to ask a football question because it's so interesting. But I think you know the answer based on what you guys were talking about with injuries. Pat Mahomes, the ankle sprain.
Yeah.
If I'm a Chiefs fan, which I'm definitely not, am I worried about the ankle sprain?
No, you're not.
He's fine?
You're not worried about the ankle sprain because of what you saw him perform with it in the game, and then a week after, and then now you have 14 days.
Yeah.
He's good.
He's fine.
Yeah. It's the other guys who haven't been in practice that you're more concerned about because you haven't seen him play. Kadarius Stoney, he got his ankle sprain. He never came back into the game.
Right.
Those are the people you need to be concerned about. You don't get concerned about Superman who's shown you he can do it with injury. You get concerned about the guys who you're still trying to decipher. Are they really superheroes?
I got a 2-part question.
Oh, that's double barrel. My broadcasting coach would get on you.
I can't. I was like, I got so many, but I'm gonna go with the 2-part. So Eli and Peyton Manning in one of their last podcasts, one of their last Manning casts, talked about how halftime adjustments are a myth with the longer halftime in the Super Bowl. So I guess question 1, is that true? And then question 2, with the Super Bowl halftime show taking up an hour of our lives, you guys,
It's
the
an hour?
Super Bowl?
No, it's long though.
It's like 45 minutes, right?
It's-
No, it's like 20. Yeah.
Is it?
Normal halftime's like 13, Super Bowl's like 20.
Well, the performance part is 13, but they have to set it up. They have to
Yeah.
get like the people on the field.
Yeah, that's
So
right,
it does
that's
take longer than a traditional halftime.
So yeah, is the halftime different in the Super Bowl? I mean, do you
And then
guys,
Super Bowl is a little bit longer, I assume. So you kind of, it's sometimes depending on the facility, it's a little bit longer walk. But it is time where you kind of have your routine a little bit longer. I'm not going to say it's a myth, but I would say generally the adjustments that you make at halftime, as players, you're going, I know, just call the plays and stop calling the plays that aren't working. So yes, the adjustments aren't there. They're not like all of a sudden drawing up a brand new playbook. They're talking, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. And the wins and the losses dictate what did they make adjustments. But they're not making adjustments. All they're really doing is acknowledging what they haven't done. The coach will be Captain Obvious and state and share what we already know. And then the coach will also call out some coaches who may not. He say, hey, defense, y'all need to stop somebody, right? Offense can't keep carrying you. Or offense, y'all need to score some points. Can we hold on to the ball this time? I know you know, so there aren't adjustments that they're going to tell you. So yes, there is a myth. The adjustments are made in the game. And you know adjustments that the plays that they're calling, they're either going to do it or they're not. And you find out as the outcome of the game if they did them or not, or if they attempted to or not.
Are most of the adjustments like taking stuff out rather than putting stuff in?
Yeah, I mean, there's times where like the coach will ask you, hey, what do you want? And sometimes depending on the way the game's going, how about call some of the stuff that we practice?
Right.
Or hey, let's quit calling this play. So, you know, that menu, they're not adding more to the play sheet that they have. They just need to actually utilize all the other plays that they have not used.
Right.
There's times, man, that they will call plays. They can have one play that's technically lined up. You can line up in different formations and in different personnel. And technically, that could be 10 different plays or 5 different plays. You can run a pitch to the right in 3 bunch personnel in a bunch right where there is a wide receivers that's bunch and they hit. You can run it in big personnel, 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends, and those 3 tight ends and they sitting there and that's 2 plays. But technically, it's the same play. Or you can do it with 2 wide receivers and a tight end. You could do it as 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and a fullback. It's still a run play, but it's different personnel, so it's a different play.
When you're an active player, how tuned in are players to the NFL draft? And was there ever a player that you were like really hoping Carolina or Baltimore would draft?
You watch it a little bit. There's some people who, depending on if they're talking about replacing you, you're paying attention. If there's a guy from your school or a player that you grew up with or knew, you're excited about. I mean, for me, I watched the draft and we had the opportunity to draft Jordan Gross, who I played with in college. We drafted him. I was super stoked. Then we drafted a guy named Starr from Utah. I was happy about that. Right? And then there's times where you hear about another player, but you're watching it if you have a reason to watch your team draft. I remember I had a draft one time. I know some guys, they watch it as a group, and then there's times I've been on vacation when the draft has happened. It just depends on where you are in your life and, you know, how much security or insecurity you have based on, you know, on the state of that team and the organization and position and what their needs are.
I feel like you'd be more tuned in to like free agency and guys you would hope to be playing with as opposed to the draft.
I didn't, because you don't really have any input on it.
Right.
Like they may ask you, but I don't believe, and maybe it's changed, I don't believe that you have that input.
There's no like teaming up like you see in the NBA, for example.
You could text guys and talk to them. But I think as a former player now, I talk to more players now about free agency and the draft than I did as a player.
That would be a super interest. I'm thinking about this now. Maybe it already exists, but if you were like free agency liaison for players. A guy hits free agency, and it's like, where should I play? Where do you think I would fit?
I just had a conversation with a guy on the way here today.
That was my idea. I don't want to hear it.
No, I'll tell you.
No, I believe it.
I'll tell you, the individual. I said, "What do you want to play? What kind of offense do you want to play in?
Right.
Do you want to play Z? Do you want to play X? What kind of defense do you want to play in?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to play rush in, stand up? Like, do you want to play? Do you want to move from corner to safety? Like, people have asked me at times, and I've gotten it more and more, and I flip it on them and not say, hey, what do you think? I'm saying, what are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at in the phase of your life as well? What are you desiring? Some people say, hey, I want to be on a playoff team. Well, if that playoff team means you're a backup, or you want to go to that team?
Right. Or you try to cash out. You don't care where you play.
Exactly. And so asking that player where he is in that life, where's his family at, what's his objection is, I think, the most important. Because I experienced that. I experienced going to free agency as an older player, and I knew exactly what I wanted. And so I try to keep that in mind and ask those players, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And most of the time they're going, all right, OG, I don't, that's a great question. Let me get back to you. And so then I feel like I did my job because I was coached up that way from the older players. What's your goal? What are your, and then also I did sports psychology. I had a sports psychologist. So it was always, what is your plan? What's your goals? What are your short-term? What are your daily goals? What are your long-term goals? What are your lifetime goals in your profession? And does that or this help you accomplish it, or does it make it more difficult? Mm-hmm. And so I go about that, and I utilize that to give them that, and hopefully gives them a better, clearer picture of how they should approach things.
I'm glad I invented that job.
So this is more of a scheme question.
Okay.
So the Chiefs blitz with Darius Sneed all the time off the edge. They really kind of playing like too high.
He's under concussion protocol.
So he got cleared.
Thank goodness, because that was a bad concussion. I was hoping for that. So that's great news.
Now, is he Super Bowl cleared, or is he cleared?
There's no difference. You're cleared. The way he sustained that.
No difference.
I don't believe there's a difference, because here's what when I look at a concussion, I look at the hands. Mm-hmm. And if they're clenched, that's a severe concussion. Right? I remember when Torrey Holt got hit, and he got hit and he was still had his hands like this, like he was holding a football. Mm-hmm. And that is a deep, bad concussion that takes time. I sustained a concussion in my career, one concussion in my career. I was kneed in the back of the head, getting up after a tackle. Ooh. And till this day, I did not drive home. However, I lost my keys. When I got home, I thought I drove and lost the keys. Yeah. They gave me a CAT scan, and I got in the huddle. This is how they knew. They took a timeout. I was in the huddle. They said to play. They said ready, break, and I was still sitting in the huddle.
Yeah. And this was mid-2000s?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they even took you off the field.
They did. They had to take me off field because I was still sitting in the huddle when everybody broke.
Yeah, it was single formation. Yeah.
No, I was still. And then I lined up. And they said, Steve, you all right? Yeah. But what I knew, I was jacked up. It took me about a week. It took me about almost 2 weeks till this day. I was watching Training Day in my dorm room. It was in training camp. I was watching that movie like I never saw it before. Couldn't remember it. And how bad my concussion was is I was not sleeping. I would get an hour of sleep. So I wouldn't go. The first time I fell asleep for about an hour at 6 a.m. Then a couple of days later, it was like 5:45. And it got to the point I was not cleared until I was able to go to bed at like 10 o'clock. Yeah. I could not sleep because there's two types. There's like one, migraines, got to be in darkness, sleeping all the time. And then there's one where you can't.
Yeah, right.
And mine was I couldn't sleep. I was literally at times I was up for 24 hours. I was unable to sleep. And they knew the severity of it because they have a protocol baseline test on the computer to know. They put me on the test. 10 minutes in, they came back in and said, "Hey, Steve, have you finished?" I said, "I'm waiting for it to get started."
Yeah.
I never started the test. They had the clock running. It was like 10, 15 minutes. And I'm sitting here waiting for them to come back and let me know when it's going to start. That's how severe it was. So I don't believe that the NFL is like taking precautions not serious. I think each team has their own individual protocol.
Right. That's more what I'm saying.
Individual protocol. And I do think when you're talking about in-game adjustments, decisions, all that stuff, I do think sometimes people are like, we don't know. And sometimes they rely on the player to give them information. And the one thing that I did learn, sometimes you have to protect the player from themselves.
Absolutely.
And sometimes players will lie to stay in the game.
Of course.
Back in the days, this happened back in the day. I used to see players, we had this thing where they used to tell you, back in the day, they used to tell you a word. And man, you be sitting next to your dude and be like, "Hey, Coley." The doctor say, "Look, I'm going to tell you this word. And when I tell you this word, Coley, Boston Underdog. I'm going to come back and tell you." Doc come back over there. "Hey, Boston Underdog. All right. Okay. You go, Boston Underdog. Cool, you good." That's how it was.
At least your very short-term memory is okay.
No,
Your 5 second. No, I know.
I was ear hustling to tell you. You had no idea.
No, I know. That's short-term right there into itself. If you can't even remember what the guy just told you, yeah, you're out.
But they would wait like 4 or 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was some of the stuff. But you know why? Because you don't want to let your guys down.
For sure.
You want to be in a gladiator ring with them.
But the actual question.
What was the question? My short-term memory right there. Gone.
So the question is, because he blitzes off the edge so much from a nickel position, and they kind of run these like 2 deep 400 fire zones, and the Jerry's comes off the edge and he gets these huge sacks, it's a big part of their pass rush on 3rd down. If you're in the slot and the DB is kind of disguising the blitz and they're acting like they're going to be in coverage, what does it tell that you can see from a slot receiver that they're going to blitz so that you can relay that message to either your tackle or your quarterback?
Well, the quarterback's already looking, the tackle's looking. What I'm going to look at is, as me, Steve Smith Sr., I'm going to look at his feet. And what I'm going to look at his feet is, I want to see his feet is, how is his body weight? Because there's no way you can fool me with your feet, because your feet's going to tell me, are you going to go forward? Then you have to shift your weight back.
Okay.
So if you are a corner blitzing, there's no physical way that you're going to be able to cover me as a corner and blitz without leaning. So not to lean.
Okay, so they go from square to kind of a 45.
And why is it 45?
So they can push off and get a good angle.
Because who generally pushes off like that when you're running in a track meet?
An edge rusher.
Or a sprinter.
Yeah.
And a sprinter must get fastest to the point A or B the best way. Have you ever seen Usain Bolt come out of blocks like this?
No.
That's why.
Okay.
Are there any corners?
He probably could, to be fair to him.
Not after what he just experienced.
No, he's chasing that man down.
Yeah.
Are there any corners who disguise it particularly well?
I mean, there's techniques, but even in their techniques, there's the NFL is about the game of inches, but it also is a game about seconds. And you have to, you're gonna watch a football game, right? We're gonna watch a 2-hour football game, 4-hour football game. Do you know how much actual action is in a football game?
12 minutes.
Yeah.
is really a good game. Now, today's game is probably about 15 or 17 minutes and 47 seconds.
Yeah.
Of football. So to be able to be explosive and score the most points in those 17 minutes, you got to be precise, and you got to cut down the wasted movement. And so you got to practice your craft, disguise your craft, and try to make it all look the same. But it's not the same. Small, little, minute, insignificant things that the normal fan drinking a beer is not paying attention to.
To piggyback off that, let's say they do blitz. Do you have only one hot, or do you have multiple hots based on who you think is coming?
When it's a championship team, you most likely have multiple hots. Non-playoff teams, bottom of the barrel, first five picks,
No
they
hots.
got one hot, no hot. And that's the truth, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
I got another one. Josh McCallum told us that on, I forget which Lions team it was on, it was one of the really bad Lions teams that he was on. They had a fantasy football league within the team. It was him, Orlovsky, and a couple other guys had played fantasy football for the entire season. Have you ever been on a team where active players on the team were playing fantasy football?
I mean, you're talking about guys with idle time. There's a lot of things. I mean, I'll be honest, we'll talk about this later. When Josh said, I went skiing on my bye week in Western Virginia. You're going to do a lot of stuff. We play dominoes, family vacations. You're going to do a lot of things like you're around these guys so much. I particularly not a fantasy guy. I dislike fantasy altogether, so I'm not really. Well, I mean,
Except for Underdog.
I'm saying I dislike fantasy in regards to over reality of the player. Like, I'm not gonna, Justin Jefferson sucks this week because he got D'd up. I'm not gonna take that away from Justin Jefferson. And the reason why is maybe we're discounting the fact that the team he's playing had a very good game plan. And you didn't calculate that and you didn't look at that team. That's the part you gotta look at. You can't get mad at the player because you underestimated the excellence of the play calling of the other team. But I do know that, man, this may sound stupid. You got fantasy football. Man, you got freaking Girl Scout cookies. You got charity events. You got so many things that we're around each other. 53 guys. That you're going to do things, man. Right now, I got, I think, like 7 bags of Girl Scout cookies at my house because someone's daughter was selling Girl Scout cookies and they know that they can count on me to buy them. So I bought them. So you're going to have those life things that happen that you're going to get involved with, especially when you're around guys so much.
Are you a frozen Thin Mints guy or are you leaving room temp?
Oh, room temperature, baby.
Oh, disgusting. It's gotta be frozen.
That's my palate, not yours.
Keep mint away from my chocolate.
Yeah?
Get it away. That's for toothpaste and gum.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you, mint cupcakes, the mini cupcakes, so good.
I believe you like that.
Absolutely.
I'm all set.
Man, it's good. It's also dairy-free, gluten-free. You wouldn't even know the difference.
I feel like I would. I feel like you've brainwashed yourself to not know the difference anymore.
No, there's some bad brands out there. I would have given it to you. But there's some that are fantastic, though.
Is Thin Mint your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Yeah, all the other ones are too complicated. Like, I'm a texture guy, too, so I don't like what was that, Samoas?
Samoas, you can only eat like 2. Once you get past that, it's like, it makes you sick.
It's so much. It's got like too
it's
much
a lot.
going on. It's graham cracker, it's chocolate, it's coconut.
Yeah, they get a lot.
You got
It's chemically after a while.
See?
It really does.
Exactly. You feel me.
Give me the s'mores one, though.
Yeah.
They do a good job with the s'mores one.
I only do Thin Mint, so I'm
Horrifying.
Last game question for
yes.
you. So Chiefs play third most cover 2 in the league.
Yes, they do 57% of the time.
ton of cover two,
Yeah.
which
We
against,
call that split safety as well.
and whether it's the rush 5 or rush 4, it's a lot of it. And they'll get into it a whole bunch of different ways. They'll move safeties down. They'll do tamp, like a whole bunch of different ways. As receiver outside, Brown and Devontae outside, getting cloud corners all day, over and over and over again. What does that do mentally to a receiver knowing?
Well, mentally it wears you down more than anything because now you start to lose faith in your coordinator that he's not putting you in a position to be able to put emphasis on getting out of that. One of the things that you need to do is motion to get them out of there to see if that corner is going to stay, condense, shorten the field, switch releases, overload the zone to one side to see how that team adapts, right? So yes, you gotta have the standard outside the numbers, but then you also gotta move. Overload 3x1, overload we're totally on one side, switch releases underneath. Then also too is you gotta be able to free release, go inside, short, stack it outside to get where he's gonna come inside, he's gonna come into condensed split, but then you get to burst it outside and see how he plays. Is he a lazy cover two?
Yeah.
Where he doesn't get the actual press or to jam you and then get to his depth at 6 yards? Is he a guy where that's where I will get back that data and that information? Well, when I get short and I burst it outside to run my deep end, so I burst outside, go to my deep end, and I have 15 or 18 yard in. Well, when I get out there, he doesn't carry me the full 6 yards like he's supposed to.
Are you
So
going to settle it down then there?
no. So what I'm saying, if he doesn't do that, well, is he not doing that because the tight end's going to the flat or the halfback is going into the flat, or is the curl, or is he not doing it because he's just lazy, or is he not, or he does get out there, but then the safety doesn't get over the top fast enough. So what you do is you shorten it up. Where you're not running that full 18, 15, you're running that maybe 14. So and for a tight end, that's called a basic. And so you can find little things that in the zone, who's all in the right spot at the right time doing their right assignments. And that's the goal of the offense, to find out who is the weakest link, who is the lazy player. And I say lazy and meaning you're supposed to get jammed and get to your depth. But he gets the jam, doesn't get to his depth, or he gets to his depth and doesn't get the jam. That all can play into it. And that's why the cat and mouse game, the chess game begins in the first 15.
So we had a conversation off camera a lot earlier today about how you do what your quarterback tells you to do. If you're shortening it up at 15 or at 14, say, is that based on conversation with the quarterback, or is that more like instinctual, like I'm reading it and I'm trusting it?
You're reading it, and then your quarterback also knows what you're doing, but also too, it has to do with timing, because in that timing is a 5-step drop and you're supposed to go 12 yards. And in his third step, you're getting kind of slowed down. Well, if you get slowed down and go into your 14-yard route, and now that means in his 5th step, he's either looking off of you, going to his second read, or you shorten it up because you have been slowed down. So it works out, and that's why they say timing is everything. Throwing off the timing, changing it up, getting different disguises by the defense plays a huge role.
Just get to your spot on time.
Get to your spot on time. If not, cut it short to make the quarterback right. And it's also the job of the wide receiver to make the quarterback right, and also for the receiver to protect the throw as well.
Yeah.
Because the quarterback is not going to want to throw it to a guy, if it's not perfect, he's not going to protect the throw and become a defender to bat the ball down to live for another down.
Yeah, gotcha. Love it.
I want to hear Brett ask more Sneed questions, but I can also leave way more than 2 Samoas. Throw that out there.
Okay.
Nice.
Horrifying.
So many Samoas. Who besides Sirriani and Andy Reid this season has impressed you from an offensive standpoint, scheme-wise?
I mean, there's been a ton of guys.
Patricia.
He's impressed me that he still has a job.
Right, yeah.
So if I go down, I would say obviously Zach Taylor, who has been a guy who you didn't really necessarily know what kind of coach, offensive-minded coach he would be. And last year you go, oh, he didn't make adjustments, or the year before with Joe Burrow getting injured. And then now he's making those adjustments. And then if I just go down I've been impressed. I was impressed with Jacoby Brissett and how he was able to fill in. Then we go down to the AFC, the NFC. I was impressed with Ben McAdoo compared to how he started under Matt Rule, how he was able to make adjustments. I think he's a good play caller of game. I'm not necessarily. I wouldn't really bet the farm on him as a innovator. Johnston for the Lions, what he's been able to get out of Jared Goff has been ridiculous. I thought Mike LaFleur started off well with the Jets. I think they got in their own way with their quarterback situation and then sustaining injuries.
Who's the OC in Jacksonville? I know it's Doug Peterson's system.
I think it's Doug Peterson's system. I think it was Schottenheimer was.
No, he was last year. He was
okay. Yeah, but I know it's more of Doug.
right. Because that's impressive to me to kind of have everyone unlearn what had happened the previous year, and then get everyone to buy into what you're doing, and get them to the playoffs.
Lions.
I'm trying to think.
I thought Kevin O'Connell. I thought he's gotten the most out of Kirk Cousins. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say negative about him, but I think Kirk has really done a good job. Their defense really left a lot to be desired. And I think Kirk Cousins gets a lot of flack. I am interested, though, off topic of who've impressed, I am interested in all these head coaches who have fired their coordinators as a last resort to kind of keep their job, to say it wasn't me as a manager, it was them. So of those guys, just going back, I'm just going in my mind through the divisions and the conferences. I'm impressed with how Mike McDaniels has really done well with Tua. And then with Skylar Thompson, he's done well. But one of the things that I'm not impressed with is the lack of running game. Because Mike McDaniels was the running game coordinator, and they really got away from that. I'm not sure how Matt Canada still has the job. I'm really not. I don't get it, and why to stay with a young quarterback like that.
The Bills had to replace Dayball.
I thought Dayball did a really. He got all the juice out of that fruit called Daniel Jones. Like he squeezed every ounce of juice in there. Like it was nothing in there prior to him, and I mean that thing was juicy. It was lemonade all over the place. I mean sweet tea, Arnold Palmer. It was, you name it, right? Ken Dorsey is really. I thought he did a good job. I think though. They need to take a little bit off of Josh Allen. But one of the things I think that the problem with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs has is they run an offense that's kind of like what Big Ben and AB did. Is I can never run that type of routes where they would run based on the corner. I'm too much of a thinker. I would overthink. He's out here, I'm supposed to do this, but then if he jumps here, I'm supposed to. I would mess up. So I'm really impressed at how Stephon Diggs runs those routes. But then that's also why Josh Allen holds the ball a lot, because they're figuring it out. And so the nucleus that those two guys have is remarkable. I think what Lou Getsy has done in the second half for the Chicago Bears has been remarkable. I don't know what all this talk of them trading out. I think they need to get better offensive linemen because the old regime drafted some offensive linemen that should have never been drafted at that position, at that status. But one of the things that is interesting, a starting offensive lineman that is not drafted in the first round generally is a guy that's in college. And they're all starters most of the time. Very rarely are backup to the backup in college are starters in the league. So you'll have a 5th round offensive lineman who was a starter at Virginia Tech. And he's a starter in the National Football League. A 7th round offensive lineman who was a starter at Alabama. He may not be a big name. And he was a starter. He's a starter in the NFL. Rarely do you get the backup to the backup that's starting. That doesn't happen. Unlike quarterbacks, right? The backup quarterback can give opportunity. A backup lineman normally is not getting drafted. He's not even being a rookie free agent. So a lot of the guys that you see that are free agents, they're starters in college. At some of the best institutions in the world, they're starters. And I was very surprised to learn that you'll see a guy that maybe is undersized was a starting center at Virginia Tech. Right? We had a starter. We drafted a starting center at Stanford who was undersized. Who was significantly undersized, was going against Haloti Ngata getting murdered. And the Minnesota Vikings traded him. And he played like 4 or 5 years. Remarkable.
Is that a scouting profile?
It wasn't a scouting profile. You had an outlier named Haloti Ngata. It doesn't always translate.
Right.
Haloti Ngata is a mammoth other man who freaking snowboards.
That's crazy.
In Utah. So you can't predict those things.
Did you play against Coley in college?
No, I didn't.
No, you've been in the league like a decade when Haloti came.
Yeah, Haloti wanted to go to Utah. Haloti's mom wanted him to go to BYU, so he went to Oregon.
Let me split the difference. Yeah,
That's why. That's what happened.
I was surprised Star Lutulele was someone who you mentioned just because he feels like you guys played in almost different eras, even though
I know, but I go back a lot I go back to Utah.
well, I know that.
Yeah.
But you guys were on the Panthers at the same time, no? You overlapped for a second.
Yeah, we were.
That's
Yep.
why you guys. It feels like you were a Raven by the time he even got in the league, in my mind, even though that obviously wasn't true.
Yeah.
So it's just wild. Living life through seasons, football, basketball, baseball seasons, as opposed to years, really crosses a lot of wires up here.
Yeah, he who grows beard, I call him the Polynesian Santa, right? And it was so awesome to be able to. One of the coolest things. There was a Kafusi, Bronson was in Baltimore with me, and I played with his brother Doug and Jason, and his dad, Steve Kafusi, was the linebacker coach when I was at Utah. So me being just on a team with him was super dope. Yeah. To be able to see and play with those family members, and to be able to play, especially Utah, such at that time when I played in earlier years, we weren't considered the powerhouse that we are now. And to be able to see where Utah is, I have so much pride for my school, and it's awesome to be able to have those moments, right? I played with Jordan Gross 2 years in college and 13 years in NFL, and my left tackle was always there, number 69.
Yeah. For speaking of Utah guys, by the way, your colleague Daniel Jeremiah has Utah, Dalton Kincaid.
Yes, sir.
TE1 in the draft.
Yes.
You got the
Second round
ball,
pick.
work with
Yeah.
the ball, anything like that?
I've dropped little nuggets to the University of Utah on his behalf. I love what he brings to the table. I think he is a cheat sheet for our college because he was so reliable that we lacked some wide receiver experience, and he was able to make up for that deficiency. And when he got hurt, we missed that. So I think with him, his absence, and him moving on to the pros, any team that gets him is going to be remarkable. He needs to work on his pass game because it's a little bit different. You know, he's going against like Joey Bosa, some of these players, Myles Garrett, Josh Sweat, that you have to be ready and prepared. And so his blocking needs to be a little bit better because he was more utilized in the pass game in college. And that can be great for him in draft status, but he's going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit in the pros. But because he's a great worker, I think he'll be fine.
Travis Kelce's still behind that. I think he can be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it took some time and it took some great coaching.
For sure, 1,000%. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Speaking of, who do you got?
For what?
With the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Which Kelce brother are you rolling with?
Man, I know a lot of guys on both teams, and I'll just go through them, right? Big Slay, knowing him and what he experienced, what he dealt with Patricia and the regime and in Detroit, and to be kind of just banished to Philly has been a great prison for him, right? For him to be able to evolve and become the type of player he is, I'm happy for him. A.J. Brown, knowing him participating in a rookie symposium, the rookie premiere, and knowing him coming out of college and then seeing who he is right now, same player, hungry, starving. Mm-hmm. And then the Slim Reaper, all those people had negative things to say about him, his lack of size, what he's doing. And then Jalen Hurts, you know, having to sit back behind Carson Wentz and being doubted and kind of pushed aside. Excited for those guys. And then Fletcher Cox, you know, 2 years, going to the Super Bowl twice, having the ability to be a 2-time champ, twice in his career. Brandon Graham, I practiced when I was in Baltimore against them. We practiced with them and seeing what kind of player he is, spicy, nasty, driven. At the end of his career, to be able to, this is an opportunity for him to go out. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. And then obviously being in Carolina with Hassan Reddick not being in those plans and people questioning what is he going to be, how is it going to work. He betted on himself and he won. And then you go to Kansas City Chiefs. And then a quarterback coach for Philly, Brian Johnston, a quarterback that led the Utah Utes against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, and I was there to see it, to see what his career. He was in Utah, quarterback coach. I had the opportunity to put his stamp on it. Had to go to different colleges. Now he's in the pros, and seeing what he's doing, that's awesome. And then with Kansas City, Ted Cruz, the president of communications, he was just moving up. His first big job, his promotion, was my rookie year, 2001. And seeing him and knowing his son TJ is committed to Kansas, and to be able to see what he's doing. Me and Andy Reid has shared with me is obviously not at the same time, but Andy Reid went to University High School in Los Angeles. I went to the same high school as him, and to be able to have that connection, talk to him, and meeting those guys. And I've gotten to know a few of those guys. Spags was on the Ravens coaching staff. There's a number of guys on both teams, coaches and all that stuff that, man, it's just remarkable and it's just cool to see because I know their grind and I know their hustle and what they experience to sacrifice away from their family. This is ultimately it. So, I mean, you have to pick one team, but I mean, again, a heavyweight bout. I mean, I want to go with Kansas City, but I wouldn't be surprised if Philadelphia Eagles. And then also, too, the broadcast, I think he does radio, Mike Quick, my third cousin. And growing up, knowing and being part of that and seeing that I hope I can be a receiver in the league like Mike Quick when I was a young boy watching him play, to say, that's my cousin. People like, yeah, whatever. And to be able to every time I go to Philly, every time we see each other, that I get to say hello to him and admire him. So for me, man, it's being in media, this is what we all congregate for at that moment, is a Super Bowl. And it's a time to just kind of sit back and enjoy the festivities. And for some people, festivities are the parties and the events. For me, the festivities is a Super Bowl. Because it's a reset to now get into the lab, get it back in my notebook to see how and what will these teams and all the other teams figure out how can they be the next team. So I got Kansas City, but I wouldn't be surprised if Philly makes it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if like the Lions won this game. You know what I mean? That's what would shock me. Team that like just isn't involved at all.
Yes.
If one of these two teams wins, I will not be surprised. But I'm going with Philly.
Okay.
I'm going with Philly.
All right.
I had Kansas City before the year.
Is that documented anywhere?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where?
My other show.
Oh, okay.
I hate to step out on you.
No,
but I
that's
do
fine.
it.
That's fine.
We did our preseason because we started this show week 3.
Yeah, let's
week
make
2,
sure.
week 3.
Let's make sure that we get that. So I just want to make sure it is.
That was documented. I had Kansas City before the season.
Okay.
And here they are. I did not have Philly in the Super Bowl. I cannot remember who I picked from the NFC. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah, we can pull that up too, but that's cool.
Who was it?
Hey,
That was probably.
it's okay.
It was the 49ers. Thank you. Yeah, it was the 49ers.
Okay. I'm glad to see you can remember when it's convenient. Why? It's cool.
10 minutes later. No. Yeah, I had the 49ers versus the Chiefs. I think I had actually, now that we're saying it, the 49ers winning because I was in on your boy Trey Lance.
I think I said, at one point I said I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota and Miami or something.
Okay.
You would throw out all kinds of combinations. I was like, what, 3 combos?
Yeah, but
That
these were teams who actually made to the playoffs.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
sorry looking at the games. I apologize. My bad.
I got both my teams made it to the.
He was that good at that time.
There was.
To a concussion.
They got that. They hit to a buzzsaw, and hey, we never heard from them again.
Buffalo, they were playing real well.
Yep.
I didn't pick a team that didn't reach that both my teams reached at least the conference championship. So I'll take that.
So you
But
know-
I'm going with, huh?
You know more about football.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's fine.
Of course not.
I've been wrong before.
I'm going to be probably wrong about this game. I'm taking the Eagles.
Okay.
And again, I keep stressing this. I'm picking the Eagles for the safety of the city of Philadelphia.
Speaking of that,
I owe you push-ups, yes.
Yes.
I know I do.
okay, all right.
I'm not docking them.
Okay.
I'm not looking forward to them, but I'm not docking them.
How many do we have?
25. The Phillies lost.
Yeah, I
the
start
Super
talking
Bowl.
about
Well, you stopped me in the middle of the sentence. I'm worried about the city, the people of Philadelphia. The Phillies lost the World Series a few months ago. The Eagles are in the Super Bowl. The people of Philly believe the 76ers are better than they actually are, and they're going to get their hearts stomped out in the second round of the playoffs again. They need this. They desperately need this. I'm worried.
Why does this feel personal?
It's not personal. It's accurate. There's no one else in media stressing the importance of the safety of really the country.
I know.
Listen, the 76ers are gum on my shoe. They do not count.
And what are the Celtics?
What do you mean? They're the best team in the league.
Okay, I'm just wondering. You just yes.
There's no animosity. I know.
Come on,
I know
on
what's
the
going to
bottom
happen.
of my shoe.
I know what's going to happen to the 70s. And Embiid agrees. I know what's going to happen to the 76ers. I don't know what's going to happen here. So I'm pulling for Philadelphia. As much as I'd like to see Andy Reid win this game against Philly, the team he could not do it with, I do think I'm pulling for Philly.
Okay, cool.
So I got Philly.
Yeah, I think it's push up top.
You want me to do it
Push-up
here?
time.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to hold your mic?
I mean, it's strapped in right here.
Yeah.
Are you going to be like touch your stomach to the ground, or am I just going to be able to do them?
I mean, once you just get in a push-up position, your stomach is going to be touching the
All
ground.
right, so I just get to stand there for 25 seconds.
I can count the ones that
Yeah. You want 1, 2, 3, 4. Go a little lower, brother.
Nope.
6. No, go a little lower. There we go. 10, Lower.
12.
There we go.
14.
Keep going. Lower.
16.
Lower.
17. 18.
Lower. Because he's not going. Go lower. Lower. You're cheating.
I'm not cheating. I'm
Yes,
dying.
Is he not cheating? No, that's. Good job. I appreciate it. Good job. He's well, as soon as we cut, he's gonna pass out.
You get a 6'7" wingspan. It's a little harder to get all the way down. It's true.
What do you think my wingspan is?
It's probably like 6'30. Would be my guess.
6'5".
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you know then.
Yes. I do.
Right. So you got mad instead of agreeing.
I'm not mad. I just know you were. Because if you'd have went down a little bit, you'd have had to use that thing you don't use. That's the
Muscles?
Yeah, tricep. That's why I was trying to activate the tricep muscles that you don't use. And so if that's where the shake would have came in.
Oh, I mean, the shake comes in from the 200 and, what am I now?
You're less.
68?
Yes. Good
Yeah,
job.
that's right.
I like it. Hey, who says Coley is not a guy who pays up when he's wrong?
Man of his word.
Man of his word.